Have you ever wondered why some days you wake up ready to conquer the world and other days you can barely drag yourself out of bed? One moment, you're unstoppable. The next, even the simplest tasks feel insurmountable. What gives? Today, we're going to figure that out. Welcome to Small Business Big Visibility, the podcast empowering you, adventurous small business owners, to attract your ideal customers and boost your revenue. I'm your host, Jason McKenzie. Each week, we'll explore easy-to-implement tools and strategies to take your business to new heights and build the lifestyle you want. If you're ready for more profits and less stress, let's get started. Motivation can be fleeting, but understanding why it fades and how to reignite it can make all the difference for you and your business. Today, we're unpacking the fascinating ways your brain and body work to either fuel your drive or sap it entirely. By the end of this episode, you're going to have some practical tools you can use to keep your momentum strong, no matter what challenges are in your way. Last week, we talked about the power of setting long-term visions that take small, consistent steps to achieve it. We also explored why celebrating milestones is critical, because these little wins, they're what help build that momentum to keep you moving forward. But what happens when that momentum disappears? When the big vision feels like a distant dream and even those small steps feel impossible? That's where today's episode comes in. So several years ago, I went on a mountain hike in Idaho. The trail was stunning. You had jagged peaks, crisp air, and the view that stretched forever. On day one, I was full of energy. My pack, it was slung over my shoulders, not a problem. But by day two, after sleeping on the hard, cold ground, my enthusiasm had vanished, and instead, I was left with a massive backache. My legs were feeling like lead, and I could barely summon the will to move. It was not a pretty picture. Looking ahead at the miles of trail that I was supposed to be hiking was a little bit overwhelming. How am I supposed to get through this, I thought. I can barely even move, let alone put on a giant pack and hike for miles. Plus, when you're in the middle of nowhere, it's not like you can just call an Uber or you can have someone else carry your pack for you. It's just not an option. If you get there, you've got to get yourself back out. So I thought to myself, what could I possibly do to help me get through this? And what I did was surprisingly simple. I would simply look ahead a few steps, pick an object like a tree or a rock, and focus on getting there. When I reached it, I'd pause, take a breath, celebrate that I made it that far, and then pick another milestone a little bit further down the trail and focus on that milestone. I wouldn't even take my eyes off from it. Just stare at that milestone as I trudged along. So here I am, step by step, tree by tree, rock by rock. I eventually make it down the mountain. And what was interesting is by the end, I'm feeling a little bit stronger. My back's feeling better. And before long, I was ready to be out hiking again. Does that sound a little bit familiar to life in general or running a business? Running a business can feel a lot like taking that hike. Some days you're energized and unstoppable, while others, every single task feels like a massive mountain to climb. Now, the trick isn't to tackle that whole mountain in one go. It's to find your next tree. Now, let's jump tracks real quick and talk about some of the psychology, because that's where things get interesting. You can picture your mind as a partnership between a rider and an elephant. The rider is your conscious mind, the planner, strategist, the part of you that sets those goals and creates the to-do list. The elephant is your subconscious mind. It's powerful, emotional, and sometimes resistant to change. When the rider and elephant are in sync, you're unstoppable. But when that elephant digs in his heels, no amount of prodding from the rider is going to move it. That's why motivation often feels kind of like a battle. The rider can see the path ahead, but that elephant, too tired, scared, or just simply overwhelmed to budge. So the question becomes, how do I get my elephant on board? You can make the journey easier and more rewarding. You can break tasks into small, manageable steps that feel achievable. You can celebrate every milestone, no matter how small, to keep that elephant engaged and willing to move forward. Now, this next idea might be an inaccurate application of Newton's law, but Newton says in his first law of motion, a body at rest will stay at rest and a body in motion stays in motion. And for me, this applies to motivation too. Starting is always the hardest part, but once you're in motion, it's easier to keep going. So here are 3 actionable ways you can build and sustain momentum. 1, start small. When you're stuck, pick the easiest, tiniest task. Maybe it's answering one email or organizing your desk. That single action can kickstart a chain reaction of productivity. The second idea is to celebrate your small wins. Your brain loves rewards. Every time you complete a task, no matter how minor, acknowledge it. That sense of accomplishment, it fuels your desire to keep going. And then the third idea is work with your elephant. Don't overwhelm yourself with the big picture. Instead, focus on the next step, the next tree on your journey. Make it so manageable that your elephant cannot say no. Now, there's probably a few of you out there that are thinking, that all sounds great, but what about those days when I just can't even start? And I get it. We've all been there. On those days, try the 5-minute rule. Commit to working on a task for 5 minutes. And if you still feel stuck after that, give yourself permission to stop. But more often than that, what you'll find is that just starting creates the momentum that you need. Another issue people sometimes face is, what do they do when the motivation just disappears over and over and over again? That can be pretty normal too. The key is having a system to reignite that motivation. So some things you can do are revisit your long-term vision, reflect on past wins, or take a short break to reset. Motivation isn't about never faltering. It's about knowing how to bounce back. Remember, motivation isn't about conquering the entire mountain in one go. It's about reaching the next tree and celebrating each step along the way. So today, I challenge you to take one small step. Pick a single task, complete it, and then celebrate the win. You'll be amazed at how quickly your momentum builds. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd share it with a fellow business owner who could use some motivational boost. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. In the next episode, we're going to dive into what to do when life throws curveballs, how to stay on track even when emergencies threaten to derail your progress. Until next time, keep climbing, celebrate each step, and watch your business thrive.